Welcome to the live stream, guys. This is the VirtualBacon channel. So in this video, we are going to talk about Bitcoin and specifically why the $58,000 level is a very good level to be buying Bitcoin at already. Long story short, we're very close to a bottom, and no matter how you look at it, whether that's on-chain capitulation, on-chain realized price, moving averages, the 200-week simple moving average is right at 58K. Even the absolute bottom, the biggest moves in the last cycle in 2022 in the bear market, how much lower can Bitcoin potentially drop? It's not going to be much lower than this. So what we want to do now is focus on buying, not focus on selling. And the mindset shift you need to have is buy the fear instead of trying to figure out just how much more fear there can be and just how much lower it can be, because it's really getting to the point where it's not really worth it. So that's what I want to focus on for today. I want to give you the level at 58K and why you're starting to see a lot of these headlines mention 58K as a very good level to be buying. And even if the bear market doesn't end immediately, which is it's looking like the case, it's going to last at least a few more months, the price is already very good. So that's on the agenda today. A lot of price talk of why this level is also already very cheap. Okay, let's get into it. Let me bring up my notes right here and let's go. So quick TLDR, where are we today? Bitcoin is approaching the 200-week simple moving average, and that's right here at 58K. You see, we have these higher moving averages. The 20-week, 50-week, 100-week already have been broken way below. And now we have the 200-week at 58K. This level is not magic. Okay, so what you can think of is the 200-week simple moving average is basically measuring how much, it's a made-up level. It's a made-up level of Bitcoin's price moves over a very long period, taking an average to see how much it has dropped in a bull market, in a bear market, because 200 weeks ago, Bitcoin's price was a lot lower because 200 weeks is almost 4 years in the past. So over the last 4 years, what's the average price of Bitcoin on a weekly candle close basis? So usually Bitcoin does not retrace a full 4 years of average price. That doesn't make any sense. So that's all it is. You can say it's 200 week, you can say it's 199 week, 210 week, whatever. It's just that this level has worked very well, not only for the last cycle, but for the last 3 cycles. And I don't need to go too deep in this. You see right here, 2022 bear market bottom, 2018 bear market, and 2014 bear market. Now, people use this level because in 2014 and 2018, this worked really well. It gave you 4 extreme low buying opportunities. But just looking at 2022, we did break below the 200-week simple moving average. However, remember, this is not a magic level that Bitcoin just needs to hold above, and if it doesn't hold above it, it's no longer working. Looking at 2022, if you bought at the 200-week simple moving average, the first time that it dropped below it, you bought Bitcoin at 22.5K. And then Bitcoin, the absolute low was 16K right after the FTX crash. Would this have been a bad idea? No. It was an amazing entry. So did it work to time the absolute bottom of the market? No. But that's the thing. Nobody and no indicator can absolutely tell you, hey, to the $100 price, Bitcoin has bottomed. No indicator can tell you that. What every indicator tries to tell you is just how overbought, oversold Bitcoin is compared to previous history. And that's why the 200-week simple moving average still works. It's still able to tell us at 58K, it's an amazing level for price to be buying Bitcoin at. And just taking that and comparing with the last bear market, the first time that Bitcoin dropped below the 200-week simple moving average, that's at 22,300-ish. And then the absolute low a few months after that, right after the FTX crash, was 27% lower. If we take that and we take the same measure compared to today's 200-week simple moving average, that brings us to $42,000. That's an absolute worst case scenario if another FTX level black swan event happens. So should you think about this and should you be afraid of this? I don't think so. Personally, if I buy at 58, would I be scared if I bought Bitcoin too high at 58,000? No, that's honestly kind of crazy, because the only way something like this can happen is we get another FTX. And even then, you gotta just put things into perspective. It looks scary. Oh, you bought Bitcoin at 58 and then it dropped to 42 at the absolute bottom. But that's the exact same thing as buying at 22K and then Bitcoin dropping to 16,000 in 2022. And then shortly after that, it recovered all of that. So looking at all of this price action back here, even if we repeat, just like 2022, which we had a terrible, terrible bear market, a full capitulation, this is the extent of it. Would you buy at 22,000? I would. So why would I not buy at 58K already? You got to think about the mindset shift there that I use, okay? So looking at a chart, when you look at the chart like this and you see, oh, 58K is right here, but oh, we could drop to like 42. Sure, it can. And that feels scary. But if you draw all of this out, just like 2022, let's say you take these candles and you overlay it right here. Even if we have an exact repeat, it will look something like this. It drops below, it retests it, and then it goes down to maybe 40K something. And then by Q4, it recovers. So would you buy here? Assuming that you already know all of this is a worst case scenario and it might not even happen like this, would you buy here? The answer is yes, absolutely, I would buy there. So it just feels uncertain because nobody knows what the absolute bottom is. But that, again, is why you don't want to be fearful of the absolute bottom. For all we know, maybe the absolute bottom doesn't even come and we don't drop below 50K. Then what are you going to do? If the absolute bottom is 51K instead of 42K, are you going to complain? The answer is clear. So that's the first thing I want to say. When you consider, hey, do I want to start buying or not at the 200-week SMA, the first touch of it, just look at 2022 and then look at back here, 2018, and then back in 2014 and 2015. These are three cases. All three of these bottoming scenarios could happen, and only one of them turned out to be not an absolute bottom at the 200-week SMA. And even then, you look at this pattern, so many people wish they could have bought at 22K, and they didn't. So that's why when you look at the chart right now, what you should be thinking is opportunity and not fear. You shouldn't be looking at how much bit lower can it drop, and instead you should be looking at, hey, how much higher can it go? if you just manage to get some average entries in this range. And we are in that kind of oversold territory now for Bitcoin. Very simple. Okay, I'm not going to dwell too long on that. The 200-week SMA is at 58K. Now, there are even a few more price levels that people tend to look at for bear market bottoms. There are two levels that you would see when you read these headlines recently from big analysts. So from Galaxy, from I believe Bitwise, or the ETF issuers, okay, the people that look at macro cycles. So what you'll see is some of these articles start to reference another level. I can find that up here. Do I have it? Here. So 58K, and then many of them will reference something like 54 to 56K. And this is with the realized price. So there are two indicators that actually still give you oversold conditions on price and what the oversold price is. That could be a bottom. So that's the realized price and the MVRV Z-score. You probably have seen this one, MVRV Z-score, because it not only is used in the bear market, but also in the bull market. So these two are directly correlated, directly using the same data. So the realized price is currently at 54,665, if I can zoom in a little bit, right here. And what this level is this. You can read this yourself. So Bitcoin realized price is the value of all Bitcoins at the price they were last transacted on chain divided by the number of Bitcoins in circulation. This gives us the average cost basis at which all Bitcoins were purchased that's currently circulating, which is another way of describing realized price. So very simply put, this 54,665 level is taking into all of the circulating supply of Bitcoin currently and looking at what's the last price that they were transacted at. In other words, for every single person who's currently holding Bitcoin, every entity, every whatever, what's the average price that they bought in at? That's what it is. No matter if it's a institution or retail investor or whatever, OG whale, taking into everyone's price level, average entry price level. So that's why it's very significant, because that's the price that not only me and you can say on a chart, hey, 55K, 58K is cheap, but also it takes into account institutions. Literally, Michael Saylor's price is calculated in this same category. Bitcoin ETFs, BlackRock's entries are calculated in this same formula as an average. So on average, everyone that has bought Bitcoin at the current Bitcoin circulation today, their average entry price is 54,000. So that's significant. That means the smart money, the true whales, the billionaires, on average, they think 54,665 is a good price to be buying Bitcoin. And that's the average price that they bought at. So that's why you see this number being referenced a lot. And that's very close to the 58,200 week simple moving average as well. So another level to give you there as why you don't want to wait too long. And if on average, the huge whales, the institutions, etc., are willing to buy at 54K, why would you try to time it below 50K? Doesn't make any sense. And then I also want to show you this. So this is the MVRV Z-score. This is directly related to the realized price of Bitcoin, because how this is calculated is MVRV stands for market value compared to realized value. So the market value is just the current circulating market cap of Bitcoin, whereas the realized value is the realized price times the circulating supply of Bitcoin. So basically, you have the current market cap of Bitcoin compared to the average cost basis market cap that everybody bought in at, and you compare those two, you see how overvalued or undervalued Bitcoin is compared to everyone's entry price. So when you, this is the market value, the black chart, and then the blue line is the realized value. So when you compare those two, you have a score. That's the MVRV right here. And then when you take the standard deviation that pulls out the extremes, you get this Z-score, MVRV Z-score. Whenever the Z-score gets into these above 7 categories, you tend to have very high valuations compared to everyone's entry. So people are just naturally have this tendency to take profit, no matter if you're retail or if you're institution. So this is what we saw in 2013, in 2017, December, and then in February 2021. And then you have these low Z-scores under 0, the negatives. So for example, this is 2011, February 2015, the bear market lows in that bear market. And then in November to December 2018, around that bear market low. And then we have November 2022, right after the FTX crash. So you see, we're getting very close. Very, very close. We're just at 0.33, which is, this is significant because 0.33 is right around the May months of 2022. You see right here, 0.33, 0.37 is where we are at right now. So if we get another price downward, let's say in the next 2 months, that would already trigger the MVRV Z-score to start to call this a bear market bottom. And what would that look like on the price? Well, very simple. You see right here, we have May 2022, and we have right now, February 2026. These 2 months are very similar because not only are we coming off of, just off of the 200-week simple moving average right before we go test it and potentially past it, but also we just had the first bear market bounce. You see, in March 2022, we had the bounce and we got a rejection from the 50-week simple moving average. And then we have this big capitulation. Similarly, right here, I have been expecting Bitcoin to even get above 100K in this market bounce. And I called this 3-4 times on live streams, but it didn't go that high. We got the bounce, but we didn't even touch the 50-week SMA. And then very sharp, we got this drawdown. So these two scenarios are very similar. The next time that we have a extended drawdown and Bitcoin makes a new low in this bear market, which I think it should. I don't think the 60K mark is the absolute low. So let's just say we wick below the 50-week SMA. That's going to look very similar, eerily similar to right here in May to June 2022, where we are in peak fear. We break below the 200-week SMA. Everyone thinks it's truly over, and people are going to be calling for way lower prices, way lower. Remember what people were calling for in 2022. And then look at what happened shortly after that. Prices started to actually consolidate right here, right around 20K, before the final capitulation to 16K, driven by the FTX collapse. But then nobody bought below 20K. I can tell you, I don't know a single person who bought Bitcoin below 20K. And then price already recovered shortly after that. So I think we'll get something very similar, where we are going to test the 200 week, but just like how everyone, says they are willing to buy at the 200 week, they will get very fearful. And the key here is to not go all in. If we get to the 200 week SMA, I don't think that's necessarily going to be the absolute bottom. It's very likely that we wick below it, but that's a totally valid scenario, because that's basically what happened in 2022. We wick below the 200 week SMA, we cause all the bottom signals to fire, the Z-score actually gets below 0. And then Bitcoin's market cap will essentially get below the realized market cap, which means we can even touch the realized price at 54K. And then at that point, everyone's going to call for way lower prices, 40K, 30K, whatever. Ridiculous prices. Just like people did in the summer months of 2022. And then Bitcoin's not going to go there. If we get a capitulation, maybe we get below 50K, but I'm not counting on it, to be honest. And then by Q4, market should have recovered. And one more thing I want to show you that matches the repeat of 2022 is the sentiment. So look at the prices here in 2022. Where would you say the peak bear market sentiment was? Most people would say, hey, the fear and greed would have been the lowest right at the bear market low. Doesn't that make sense? Right after the FTX crash? Well, that's actually not the case. Here is the fear and greed index on CoinGlass. And I'm going to point you to 2022. 2021 to 2023. So I'm going to take out the Bitcoin price and look at the fear and greed index. The fear and greed index had its lowest level in May of 2022. From May 2022 until June 2022, July 2022, the 1.5 months, everyone gave up. Everyone left the market in this phase when Bitcoin first touched the 200-week simple moving average. And then by November 2022, the market actually recovered in terms of sentiment. Fear and greed index got back up to 30. It wasn't under 10 anymore. So for everyone that is tracking this and are scared of, buying the fear is at all-time lows. I don't think the sentiment can get any worse, to be honest with you. And the fact that the market already recovered in the sentiment here by November 2022, right here, is very telling. So that's why I say it's all looking like a repeat of 2022. We have peak fear, which is just about to drop. Then on the next weekly candle, if we get below the 200-week SMA at 58K, you're going to see some crazy headlines. The death of Bitcoin, Bitcoin going to 0, Bitcoin going to 20K, whatever. And that's precisely the most dangerous time. The sentiment is going to be the absolute worst. You have to be prepared for this. If you get caught up in the sentiment, when we drop to the 200-week SMA, you don't treat it as an opportunity, and instead you try to figure out, hey, can we bottom at 40K? Can we actually go to 30K? Or is it already over? You're going to chop yourself up. And what's going to happen is price will be very hard to move much, much lower than that. But many people will lose patience and they will lose confidence and they will actually exit the market, which is precisely the worst time to do so. And this cycle, this bear market is especially difficult. Why? Because every single indicator, every single thing is going against Bitcoin. Every single thing that fundamentally says Bitcoin should go up is not working. And you all know what I'm talking about. So gold is at a new all-time high as we speak. I'm going to give you that list right here. Gold, all-time high, 5,100. We have the S&P, near all-time high. It's just about to break a new all-time high. We have Dixie dropping lower and lower. So whenever dollar is weak, Bitcoin should be strong. We have the Fed is actually cutting rates. Okay, so when you look at the not the actual CME Fed Watch and how many times the Fed is potentially going to cut rates, this is actually not that significant because we're comparing bear markets to bear markets. Okay, so here is the effective federal funds rate, the interest rate at the Fed. In 2022, the bear market, from May to November, the Fed was raising rates. They raised rates from 75 basis points to 375 in a matter of 6 months. Whereas right now, they are actively cutting rates. And you know how the Fed works. When they cut rates, they don't just randomly stop it and raise rates again. So when the rates are going down, this is bullish for markets. And this is why you see everything is continuing to go up. And also you have the M2 money supply or global liquidity, and that's increasing. So you take M2 across the world, you see this is increasing, this purple line right here. And Bitcoin has followed it very closely up until this here, around October 10th, when everything broke. When Bitcoin completely broke every single correlation. It broke its correlation with gold. It broke its correlation with the S&P, with M2 money supply, with everything, with every fundamental indicator. And that's why so many people will lose belief in Bitcoin, but not me. What I'm going to tell you here is that you are not going to catch me being bearish on Bitcoin at these levels. That's crazy. I think there is one service I can do to you guys, which is to be bullish on Bitcoin. To be bullish on Bitcoin when Bitcoin drops lower. Because I've seen it. I've seen it happen many, many times before. Just when everything looks the worst is when you want to buy. That's when the opportunities are. So Bitcoin is ride or die for me. And I think that's one true thing that I can offer, that the TradFi guys and the stock bros and all the tourists, they really cannot offer, which is this pure belief in Bitcoin. I am at least a Bitcoin forever holder. So I'm going to be making that call, and I'll do that multiple times here. I think in this video, I just want to give you a balanced approach to say, watch out for this next 2 to 3 weeks. We are most likely going to test the 200-week simple moving average at 58K. And when that comes, a lot of people will say, hey, this is the absolute bottom. That's not what this level is able to tell you. This level is only able to tell you that it's a great level to be buying. And you treat it as so. You buy very slowly. You use your dry powder to buy. But at the same time, for everyone that apes all in at 58K and it just drops to 55, all of a sudden they're going to be very panicky and they're going to say Bitcoin is over. You have to hold out. You have to do whatever you can, walk away from the charts or DCA in very slowly, or, come back to the channel and watch 5 other videos of me just making bullish calls on Bitcoin day after day. And then hopefully you can last through this period until Q4 this year, let's say, the latest. That usually is the time frame for a bear market to be over. And then all of a sudden, the narratives are going to shift. We just need Bitcoin price to make a comeback. And then all the tourists, all of the analysts, all the non-believers will flood back in yet again. But this period is the most dangerous, it's the most difficult. 58K is just like 22K in 2022. And I know for a fact, myself included, very, very few people were able to hold out in this period from June 2022 until even this first major candle, January 2023. This 6 months period was the worst time. So be prepared for that. You're not going to see many people making bullish calls in this period. All of the sentiment is going to be, hey, how much lower can it drop? You got to ignore all of those and just do what you can to DCA in. And obviously, fix your cash flow, work on your business, and so you can have some income to survive and DCA in Bitcoin in this period. Okay, I think that's it. That's a short and sweet, very simple way to put it when it comes to Bitcoin price action, and why I think 58K is a great opportunity, but also a great danger if you're not prepared. Just like 2022, around the 20K level, very similar. Remember, next month, 2 months, we are going to be choppy, and we are going to have a test of the 200-week SMA at 58K, and there are quite a few levels there. So no matter what you hear from the market, from the news sources, whether it's 58K is the absolute bottom, that is unlikely. Nobody can accurately make that call. But at the same time, people calling for Bitcoin's death just because Bitcoin drops below 58 and goes to 55, that's also not true. You can always draw lower and lower lines. There's the realized price. There is the 2022 bear market low, which could point us to below 50K, but that's not that much lower. That's just like buying around 20K. So the main thing to remember here is right around 58K, as of this recording, is a very good value range to be accumulating. And over the next 9 months from now until November, if you can get an average entry into Bitcoin at 58K and manage to hold that, you're going to be very happy in the next bull run. That's the data. So do whatever you can. I would say try to run a DCA and get an average entry around 58. But if you just want to absolutely ape at 58K and lock your coins away, by all means, go do that. I'm not going to judge you. But that's what this level tells us. And that's what my plan is. I'm going to continue to buy slowly but surely around these levels, and then try to hold out as much as I can. And I'll try to go live as much as I can so I can chat with you guys, share my perspective, and cope through this bear market so we can actually manage to buy the Bitcoins and hold them through to the next bull market. Okay, that's it. That's everything I wanted to say for today. So follow me on X at VirtualBacon0x for day-to-day alpha. I am still doing trades, providing alpha on there, but they're not just going to be on YouTube. They're much quicker to be posted on X in text format. And if you like this video, share it with a friend and subscribe to the channel so you can join in on our next live streams, as I'm going to be doing them more and more regularly to hopefully help you guys, have this conversation in the bear market so we can all come out alive on the other side. That's it. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you on the next video and next live stream. Bye-bye.